Jake, you want to say anything about being back, or you want to just go right to questions?
Yeah, I can start off and just say, as many of you could imagine, how excited I am and how excited my family is to be back in Columbus and be back at Ohio State. I think when you talk about home, and especially for us, my wife graduated from here. Obviously, I have a relative who was an okay player here as well. This is home, and I think there's something to be said when you have an opportunity to return home and do what you love with the people that you love and around people that you love and that you're close with. I think it's special. And so yes, to say I'm excited and to say my wife is excited and my family is excited, I think is an understatement, as many of you could imagine. But nevertheless, I think it's something to express, because it really is. It is a blessing. It is an honor to be here. We view it that way, and I've been able to watch what Coach Holtman and his staff and this program, what they've been able to accomplish the last couple of years, and even from a distance, I think it's something that I admired and was intentional about paying attention to, and really never anticipated that this opportunity would present itself the way it did, but here we are, and we're excited to be here. So with that, yeah, anything you guys have?
Why were you intentional about paying attention to it?
I think in this profession, two reasons. You try to watch what other people are doing, what makes them successful. And Coach Holtman's got an unbelievable track record. So I've always admired and watched what he's doing, try to pick up things that you can take with you wherever you're at to say, here's something we can add to help us. And then, to be honest, we're Buckeye fans. I mean, I think that's the other piece of it. There's times where I come home and my wife's got the Buckeyes on the Big Ten Network and shoot football Saturdays. I mean, she's trying to plan her day around watching the Buckeyes, so I couldn't get away from it. And so I think the combination of it being Ohio State and Coach Holtman and the success that he's had, and the reputation that he has within coaching circles, that combination is why I was intentional about following the Buckeyes.
How familiar were you with Coach Holtman? How much did you have crossed much in coaching circles, or just how familiar were you with him when this whole process started?
Yeah, I would say we knew each other, and there was some familiarity there, not a ton. When we did have a chance to get away for a weekend, my wife and I would come back to Columbus often because we have family here, and being around family was important to us. We have a 13-month-old daughter, and so you can imagine how family requested us to come back when we did have a quick moment. And Coach was kind enough when I was here, whether it was in the summer to work my brother out, or and some of those guys and former players, or whether it was just I was in town and they were practicing, and he was kind enough to let me pop in and watch a little bit. And through those interactions, we were able to get to know each other a little bit. But I would say that was probably the extent of it.
Jake, what are your responsibilities? Do you know what they are yet? And how do they differ from where you were before?
Yeah, I think we're still working through some of that. And, in my situation, I think a big responsibility of mine is to kind of come in and learn and see where I fit. Because this staff has done an unbelievable job. And so I have to come in and figure out where can I add value. And some of that is, I think it's natural to look at what Coach Stragi did before me, to think it's natural that I would slide into some of those responsibilities. But yeah, to some degree, I think Coach will, as I'm around more and the timing, it being recruiting and stuff, I haven't been a lot of time to just, probably for him to sit down even and think, where exactly, but I think Coach has a good idea. We've talked a little bit about that, but a big responsibility in my mind is to come and figure out how I can add value to a staff that's done an unbelievable job already.
You talk about that value. What's your strength as a coach?
Yeah, I think I've had an ability to relate to guys in relationship building, which I think is beneficial in recruiting and beneficial in build, connecting with the current team. And so that's an area I think that I've excelled at so far in my coaching career, and in player development and those type of things that, not only do I think I've done well, but I love doing too. So I would lean more along those lines, that kind of that relationship building, which is beneficial in recruiting and with the players, that I would think is a strength. And listen, my dad, coached high school basketball for, maybe close to 40 years. So I've been fortunate enough to be around the game my whole life. And so to have an ability to see the game and understand the game at a high level is something that I had access to at a young age that a lot of people don't get in a lifetime. So I think that's another area that I can add value.
Jake, as someone who was observing Ohio State from a distance, I suppose, what did you think of sort of the end of Coach Mata's tenure here, having worked with him and knowing him so well? And then what was it like for you to see them sort of bounce back almost immediately with guys like Kata and JT, guys that you had relationships with?
Yeah, again, I think at that point, we're fans, and we wanted Ohio State to be successful unless we were playing against them, really. I love Thad, and I'm very close to Thad to this day, and it was hard to watch. I think it was hard, and felt like some things out of his control, and that was hard to watch as a friend and as someone who considers him a mentor. But when Coach Holtman came in, and you still had guys like JT and Kata who I have relationships with, it was like, let's get this thing going, and they did really quickly. So that was great to see. And again, part of that's from a fan perspective, but I do think, it was hard, it was hard personally to see what Coach Mata went through towards the end, but it was great to see, and also the quick turnaround. Yeah, it's great.
And when you were part of the Vandy staff that gets let go, where were you at before, I guess, Coach Holtman reached out to you about this opportunity? Were you aggressively looking to get somewhere else? Were you considering maybe taking a year off like some guys do and just sort of taking a step back? Just what was your mindset before this opportunity came up?
Yeah, I was aggressively looking, I had some really good conversations with some potential opportunities before this position opened up, and I maintained that aggressive approach with this one too. It's amazing, and I haven't been doing this near as long as some people have, and I'll be the first to admit that, but to go through some of the adversity that I went through this past season and this off season, I can tell you right now, I'm a far better coach than I was 12 months ago or 2 years ago. That I know for sure. So yeah, at that point in time, with where I was at in my career, I was aggressively trying to find something, for next season.
You guys started to put together some solid recruiting classes before the changeover in staff. At a school like Ohio State, what are some of the benefits now that you're here as far as from a recruiting standpoint?
Well, I'll just speak for me personally. I believe in everything Ohio State stands for. I grew up watching it, obviously was invested at a whole different level when my brother was playing here. And, talk about being a fan, talk about, growing up in Ohio, but then you have family involved. That's a different level. And so I believe in everything that this place stands for. I think it is, one of the very best universities in the world. And so from a recruiting standpoint, from my perspective, recruiting's the fun part, because I get to tell people about how special this place is. And so I think that it's to work somewhere that you believe in so much can only enhance your ability to recruit, in my opinion.
Does what's going on as far as a lot of these scandals going around college basketball right now, does that affect the recruiting at all?
I think the perception of recruiting college basketball right now definitely presents challenges. But part of our job is to figure out from an early point in the process, who fits, and it's all about fit, and that's what makes Ohio State special. Is you get great fits like Aaron Crafts and John Dieblers and even go out, some guys, Evan Turners who weren't from Ohio, like it's about fit. And so I think regardless of the challenges that, that are public right now, I still think you have to return to that. You gotta return to fit.
Speaking of recruiting, how have you been able to bring what you were doing at Vanderbilt, maybe open up some doors that Ohio State wasn't in yet, to here and to this staff?
Yeah, again, I think it all boils down to fit, and the moment I started working here, like, it was no longer about, recruiting at Vanderbilt, it was all about recruiting at Ohio State. And so that specifically deals with fit. And my job is to determine who fits here and to help determine that, with our staff. So that's been the focus of, whether it was Vanderbilt or here, my focus has solely been on finding who fits here.
When you look at this current roster, I don't know how much you've been able to work with them, but you said you've been paying attention. Just the overall makeup of this year's team, what's kind of your evaluation of where this team can go, especially with the new guys coming in?
Yeah, it's probably not fair for me to really give a projection on, what the ceiling is of this team, but I'll say this, I think I see, and it's very easy to see, that we're young, and there's gonna be, a good deal of youth on the roster, but that being said, I love the energy of the program. I love the energy of the staff. I haven't had a chance to work, with the players yet, but I can only imagine. And again, I watched how briefly, when I could occasionally, how the team interacted and things, and you pay attention to that kind of stuff. But I just think there's a great energy around the program right now, and that excites me. What does that mean from a ceiling standpoint? That's hard to say, but I will say, we're gonna have a good portion of our roster is young, and, there's challenges that come with that, but, we'll see. I mean, we gotta get to work this summer.
Going back to what they were asking about recruiting, there's some of the same guys who you were once recruiting to Vanderbilt, and now you're looking at them as potential guys to target Ohio State. How smooth has that been with the transition where you're wanting them to go to this school, and then all of a sudden you change jobs, but you're still interested in them?
Yeah, and obviously I can't speak specifically on stuff, but I would say this again. I think recruiting, the keys in recruiting are relationship building, and I would say, I think, in my experience, I think, kids can see if you're genuine and if you really believe in what you're communicating. And so I think I stick to those two things, regardless. Again, when I started here, it's still about relationship building, and it's still about, believing in what you're communicating. Because I think people can tell. I think they can tell if you don't really believe it, and I think they can tell if, you're faking it. So I just think that for me has helped make the transition smooth, because I get to be who I am. And I'm going from a situation that I believed into another situation that I really believe in, and that I can talk about from a very personal level too, which I think helps.
You left Ohio State in 2016, go be an assistant at an SEC school, and then just 3 years later, you're back at Ohio State. When you left initially, I mean, there might have been a thought in your mind that you might be back at Ohio State, but are you surprised you came back so quickly?
Yeah, but in my life, I've learned that God works in mysterious ways. And if you would have told me 6 months ago or a year ago or 3 years ago that, hey, you're gonna be back at Ohio State at this point, I would have said, sounds nice. I know my wife would really like that, but it doesn't, like, in this profession, you don't get to draw it up, right? Like, you don't get to just say, at this point in my career, I'm gonna be here, and this next point, I'm gonna be here. And I think, in the back of my mind, we always felt like Ohio State would be a great place to be at, regardless of whatever point you're at in your career. So I didn't anticipate being back here, but I've learned that God does work in mysterious ways, and to never doubt or question, I guess, when He makes something obvious to you and reveals something for you.
Jake, I got piggybacking off that a little bit. When you were at Valpo, you had left a full-time assistant job to come here and be a video coordinator. I'm sure there are a lot of considerations go into making that kind of move, but as you're thinking about the progression of your career, where would you like to go? Why at the time was the right move for you to sort of take a step back in responsibility to come to Ohio State?
Yeah, at the time, it probably was a little bit of a head scratcher to a lot of people. I mean, Bryce Drew gave me a chance to be on the court, and at the time, I think I was one of the youngest, if not the youngest, assistant coaches in the country. And that's a great opportunity, and be at your alma mater and things like that. Like, that's a big deal. But for me, I've tried to make decisions not based so much on like how it can help my career advance, but more like how can it help make me a better coach. And I think the opportunity to work for Thad Matta, and I know, because I know how my brother feels about Thad Matta, what that opportunity could do for me personally, it felt kind of like a no-brainer. And then, have an opportunity to go back and work for Bryce Drew in the SEC at a school like Vanderbilt, at that time felt like a no-brainer. And it wasn't, about going from video coordinator to assistant coach or things like that, but it's more about the people. And so, the opportunity to work for Chris Holtmann, it's a no-brainer. If he was somewhere else, like, you gotta really consider working for him. And so that's what I'm trying to make it about, is like, be around high-level people, be around people that you trust, that you believe in, that you admire, and that provide an opportunity for me to grow personally. And what that means from a career standpoint, like, we'll see what happens. But I know that just in being around Coach Holtmann in the short time I have, like, I'm gonna become a much better coach. And so for me, in my mind, there's a great deal of value in that.
And you've used the word admire a couple of times, just like that. Could you be a little more specific, I guess, with regards to Coach Holtmann, like what it is about what you've observed throughout his career that you do admire and maybe want to emulate a little bit?
Yeah, and aside obviously from the success on the court, and but I have admired just his ability to bring a team together and to execute at a high level. But the very few times I have gotten to see him in practice and see him around his players, like, I admire the relationship he has with his players. I mean, I think that's a huge deal, and I think that's really important, especially with the landscape of college basketball today, that if you can connect with guys on that level and your head coach can connect with guys like that, I mean, that's huge, and there's a great deal of value in that. So those would be some specific things that I've admired about him, but he's got a reputation from a tactician standpoint of being, one of the best in the country. So anytime you hear that, like, you kind of look a little bit, we have access to all, past games and all that stuff, so you look into that a little bit. But it's the other stuff, who he is as a person, how he interacts with his players, what he gets out of his players. Like, if I can pick up some of that stuff, that's gonna really help me become a good coach. So that would be specifically some things, yeah.
You mentioned your dad, and obviously you're from a basketball family. I think your story is similar to a lot of guys where you grew up with your dad as a basketball coach and then you become a basketball coach. When your playing days were over, were you always going to be a coach?
I tried to deny being a coach, probably because, I saw my dad as a coach. And so I tried to deny it for the longest time. But at the end of the day, the most influential people in my life have always been coaches. And that goes back to my dad, Homer Drew, Bryce Drew, Thad Matta. Like, these people have had a profound impact on my life. And so I want to have that same impact on players. That's why I coach. That's my motivation for coaching, is like, my life has been changed by coaches. I want to have the same impact on guys. And I've been fortunate to have a great deal of access to that, so far in my life.
When did that click for you that you wanted to provide that same thing?
It was about midway through my junior year of college. And believe it or not, the NBA was not knocking down my door. I'm a much better teacher than I was a player. I taught my brother. Every time he makes it, I'm the one who taught him. My dad taught him the misses, but I did the makes. So I knew then, it just kind of hit me, and I was encouraged by the staff there when I played. And like I said, I had these huge aspirations to own my own business and, do all that kind of stuff. That was where I felt like, I wanted to be, but I had a heart change, and here I am.
What kind of business?
That's a great question. I never got that far down the line. I'm probably not creative enough to come up with something crazy, but I like being around. I like bringing people together and helping teams achieve at a high level. So hopefully something like that, maybe something already established, they would have brought me in and helped them take it to another level.
There you go.
Growing up, I always hated playing against Jake Diebler teams. They were so hard to play against. You talked about your dad influencing you like as a person, but in what ways as a coach, what sort of things did you draw from him that you think have helped make you a better coach?
I've never been around a coach who is more intense and passionate than my dad. And if you've seen him coach, especially back in the day, you could probably attest to that. So I fed off that, and I still feed off that. I think when guys know that you're invested and you really care, my dad was unbelievable at that. He cared, and to this day, the way he communicates with former players and things, like you know it's real. And so he taught me, watching him taught me how to be genuine, how to be passionate, how to be intense. But he was great at, as intense as he was when, my brother turned it over, because I never, but as intense as he was when things went wrong, he was just as intense, when you did something right. And so I learned that at a very young age. And I appreciated that about playing for me. He was hard on he was hard on us too, harder than anybody's ever coached. But I knew he cared, and that was a big deal.
And we know which Diebler scored the most points, but I wonder which Diebler was the best scorer in high school.
Well, one Diebler had another Diebler setting him up, so he probably had it a little. Well, I guess I can't quite say because he scored more when I left. But John's the most gifted scorer. There's no doubt about it. And to this day, to be honest, when we won state here my senior year, and he was a sophomore, my dad coaching, and that's been the best basketball moment of my life. Being able to do that with family and stuff, that's the best. So yeah, I'll let you ask him who won the last time we played one-on-one. He'll probably try and talk about who was officiating that, but yeah, aside from being the best scorer, I will give him the nod on that, yes.
Jake, could you tell us what your days have consisted of, both in the building, out of the building? Has it been mostly recruiting? What's it been like since you started?
Yeah, when I started, it was during a recruiting period, so there was a lot of travel initially, and now we're starting to settle in and spend a little bit more time in the office. So I've been intentional about getting to know the guys on staff that I didn't know as well as others. But we've had meetings and we're strategizing on everything from recruiting to roster management to players. I mean, you go down the line of like we're working, and so it's been great. I mean, Coach Holtman he does a phenomenal job of just making our entire staff operate at a high level, and it's been fun. I mean, it's been fun. I'm learning a lot, and that's what I'm trying to do right now, to be honest. Whether it's going to lunch with somebody or sitting in the office, I'm trying to learn, and I'm trying to learn and grow, and it's been very busy. Moving in during a recruiting period has its own challenges, but yeah, it's been good.
Did you get moved yet?
Yeah, we're not quite finished, but we're getting closer.
Did you say you hadn't met any of the players yet, face to face?
I haven't worked with the players.
Haven't worked with them.
Yeah,
You hadn't
when I
met
got
them.
here, workouts were done. So I haven't worked with the players, but I've met some of them. They were still in school when I first got here. Met all of them, really. Yeah, met all of them, and have begun building those relationships.
Was one of the first things that I kind of hear people talk about when they look at Buckeye basketball is the family atmosphere, relationships, like you spoke about with the players. Did you kind of sense that right away?
Absolutely, and I would say it even goes another level to the former players, and that's something I've always loved about this place. Is you got these guys that you can watch on TV, during the year, and then they come back here and you see them in the gym, and they're working on their game here, and they care about the program. It's well documented. Evan Turner, Mike Conley, like what they've given back to the program. So the family thing is real here, and a lot of people talk about family, but here it is definitely real, and I think it's a huge part of the success too. I think, and it seems to be very important to Coach Holtman too, and so it's been fun. It's fun to be a part of it.
Okay. All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Yeah.